Kylink here, and welcome to my series where I show you exactly how I built my own personal super ultimate setup from scratch. And I'll tell you about some of the things I had to learn in order to do this, some of the mistakes that I made along the way, how I could have corrected those mistakes, but how I also still ended up with a pretty sweet result. In the last episode, I showed you my 3D model and talked a little bit about it. And if you guys are interested, I can make a tutorial on learning the basics of that program and what I needed to know in order to build what I built. But in order to take that 3D model and turn it into a reality, I had to ask for some help. And so over an extremely casual game of Dungeons & Dragons, I asked my good friend Alex for some advice, and he gave me some tips that would help improve the structure of my build. And so I took it back to my 3D model and I applied it. And once I had applied all the changes to my model, I then created some 8x4 foot templates of the MDF wood that I would go and buy at the Home Hardware. And I took all of the pieces from my model and I laid them out onto those templates so I would have something to refer to when I was making my cuts. Then I finally went and I ordered my materials. So the reason that I went with MDF is because I needed something that would be strong enough to support my CRT TV while also keeping costs low. Some of the other benefits of using MDF are the smooth surface and the hardness factor, making it resistant to scratches and dents. But I could have used spruce, pine, or plywood for these pieces, and I can actually give you a pretty detailed explanation of why, thanks again to Alex's knowledge and support in this project. So basically, if you put some weight on top of a piece of wood, it's going to want to bend the wood down, right? Well, on the top of the piece of wood is where the compression is happening, which is trying to squeeze that wood together, which is where MDF is strong enough, but it's also cheaper than the other options. But on the bottom of the piece of wood is where tension is happening, which is trying to rip that piece of wood apart. That is where plywood, spruce, or pine would be stronger than MDF. You can pretty much think of this in the same way as how they lay concrete with rebar running through it. The MDF and the concrete are pretty similar because they're both made up of small particles of stuff that's put together, and they're both strong against the force of compression, but they're not as strong against tension, and that is why they run the rebar through the concrete. And so the desktop itself, made of MDF, is like the concrete, and the pieces of wood running underneath the desktop to support it are like the rebar in this example. That's why those pieces would have benefited from being spruce, pine, or plywood. Now, if I really wanted to tick off all of the boxes at once, I could have used a hardwood like birch, which has resistance against compression, tension, and it also has the hardness factor, making it resistant to scratches and dents. But it's also more expensive, and I don't even know if I would have been able to find it in the shapes and sizes that I needed. Either way, it's plenty strong enough to hold everything that I need to put on top of the desk, and that is basically my explanation on why I chose MDF, and a little bit of insight into how I could have incorporated some other materials to make it even stronger. But again, I'm very happy with the results, and I hope you guys will stick around with me on this series to see all of the other things that I went through in order to get to what I have today, which I'm super proud of. So thank you guys for watching, and I will talk to you again soon.